Good morning. I can see other people here. Jeannie, can you hear me? David, Barbara, Scott, you're all muted. Okay, Scott is here. And Teresa and Richard. Teresa, you're the host. I don't see you. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Barbara, you're muted. David, so are you.
Mr. Chairman, I have another meeting, so I may have to just leave for a short period of time.
Okay.
I'll let you know if.
I appreciate the heads up. Barbara and David, you are still muted, and I don't see Teresa here. Oh, Jean, you're muted as well. Have to.
Is that better, Doug?
That is better, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa is the secretary here. Paul, I have to confess, we had a power outage here on Harris Avenue, and the power has yet to come back on. So I've sort of jerry-rigged everything here. And I might find out that my cell phone or my laptop has lost power, in which the vice chair will take over. Got it, Jean?
Oh, yes, I'm so happy about that. I will give it my all. How's that?
Okay. Looks like we'll be okay based on sunshine and a cell phone Wi-Fi hotspot that seems to be holding up okay. I do not see Teresa here, and I'm assuming that this Zoom meeting is being recorded.
Let me double check, Doug. I'll go over to the other office and make sure she's all set.
Okay, we'll wait for a second then.
Doug, we only need 4 to be a quorum,
I believe so.
including yourself.
Yeah, and we have 6.
See, I only see Doug, Doug, and then David and Scott. That's all I see.
Okay, Barbara is here, Richard is here, Paul is here, as well as Scott Gibbs and hopefully Teresa. Scott?
Teresa is here. She's using her phone. She can't use the video. The City Hall phone lines are down. So she is listening. She is recording. She is taking the notes.
Well, I'm on Harris Avenue and all of my neighbors are out. I got a text message from National Grid last night saying 283 customers were affected by this blackout. But we have a friend on Gaskell Street, which is a half a mile away, and they have power. So it's things are a little goofy right now. In any case, I will call the roll. Well, Scott, can you call the roll?
Sure, I'll go ahead. And I'm sure if I do this wrong, Teresa will tell me. So, Chairman, I would suspect you would call the meeting to order.
Yes, I'm here.
And then we'd have a roll call of attendees.
Yep. So you call the roll.
I would suggest that each individual that's on this call go ahead and chime in.
Okay. Vice Chair first, how's that?
Oh, I'm the vice chair, huh? Jean Budnick, present.
David,
David Nab, present.
Barbara,
Barbara Scanlon, present.
Richard? Oh, Richard, you're muted. And Paul for the time being.
Paul Gould, present.
Okay. First, we have approval of the minutes of September 7th of 2020. What is your pleasure?
I'd like to make one comment.
Okay.
I noticed in the minutes it refers to the ordinance that was passed by the city council as passing in June of 2019.
I believe it was earlier than that.
I think it passed on May 4th of 2020. So if we could make that change.
Okay.
So noted.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of the meeting of September 7th with the correction as to the resolution of the city council. David?
Yes, it's just a little typo, that's all. I believe this was passed this May.
Should be May 4th of 2020.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
That's what it says. Yeah, that's when it was signed.
Great. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those, we have to go through roll call again.
That's correct.
Scott, you can do it?
No, go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we have to
We
make a
can hear
motion.
Oh, Teresa, you're there.
Okay, I think I got it. Yeah.
but-
I'm
Okay.
on my desk computer and my cell phone. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so the vote to approve the minutes with the correction as requested by member Nab.
Yeah,
That would be Chairman Brown,
yes,
Vice Chairwoman Budnick,
Yes.
member Nab,
Yes.
member Scanlon,
Yes,
member Levesque. I just asked you to unmute.
bottom left-hand corner, Richard. He said yes, I could read his lips.
Yeah. Yeah, you're still muted. Should I count? Can I count that?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Try
member
that.
Gould.
How's that? How's that?
Much better.
There you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
member Gould. Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right.
I don't believe there are any bills and communications, so we'll move on to the report of the executive director.
Teresa, where are we as it relates to the ticket card for the bank?
I am waiting to meet with Vice Chairwoman so that we can get her on the account.
So everyone's aware we're doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a comment to that, if you don't mind. Teresa, I know, I can't drive for the next few days, so I had a procedure. So would it be possible that Sue Golan, my neighbor, the mayor's secretary, could bring me the paperwork, or is that non-doable?
I'm okay with trying that. I have a copy of the paperwork, so if that doesn't work, I can always create another one.
Okay, if you don't mind, she would be glad to do that for me.
I'll give that to her today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Very good. Now moving on to the executive director, an update on RESH. Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. RESH has achieved all of its state permits, both from the Department of Environmental Management as well as from the Department of Transportation. They have gone through the planning board process and have achieved approval all the way through preliminary. Final approval can be done administratively by the city planner. We are just waiting for the final go-ahead from the engineering department. And once that's done, the final approval of the site plan be done. RESH has submitted its building plans to the building office. Once the engineering department approves the RESH plan, they will issue a building permit. Where the company is right now, they are still working on finalizing their financing with Bank Rhode Island. We are going to be participating in a conference call next week with Rush and the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation as it relates to that financing. The primary stage of the financing is the bank is currently going under the appraisal process. They've already issued a commitment to finance the project, but obviously the appraisal on the real estate is typically the most important issue, especially in Rhode Island, where construction costs exceed market values. So hopefully we can get through this okay, and they have gotten an extension to their purchase and sell agreement through the end of October from the seller. So at this point, all things still are go. Keep your fingers crossed.
Great. Any questions? Yes, Member Nab.
Yes, I don't know if any of you watched the city council meeting on Monday. One of the issues that was raised again was the lack of communication from the redevelopment agency. I know that we talked a little bit about the memo. We didn't actually get handed a copy. I believe it was on the secretary's computer, Director Gibbs, and that you were going to submit that to the city council.
Yes.
Did we do that?
Yes, we did. We did that in the middle of September. It was sent to the city council through the solicitor's office. And the solicitor's office, unfortunately, did not follow up on it. When I heard the council's comments, I immediately sent an email to the solicitor's office and said, "Did you not send it?" They said, "Whoops." So they were issuing it now. So yes, we did submit it by mid-September for the council review.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
So,
And that memo is dated September 17th, so the council knows that we did submit on September 17th.
and the memo did have the status of the bank, the banking accounts?
Yes, it did, as of that date.
Great, super. Sorry about the oversight, David. I was under the assumption that the communication had been made to the city council.
As I was.
Yeah, I just want to get it on record that the redevelopment agency is trying to follow the ordinance that was passed in May. And if there was a lack of communication at no fault to the redevelopment agency, then I would like the city council to know that. Obviously, Councilman Cronoya was, I think he said his patience were running thin, or I'm paraphrasing, but he was getting irritated by the fact that we hadn't, and I was quite surprised to hear that. So I'm relieved that we did take the steps that we talked about in our last meeting, and I just wanted to get that on record.
Great. Any further comments for the executive director? Moving on, unfinished business, Mr. Budway as agency counsel.
Yeah, consistent with the conversation at the last redevelopment agency meeting, we tabled this. The proposal from Mr. Budway far exceeded the scope and budget that we have available to us. And the decision was to table. I'm asking for you to table it again, where we will resurface this issue, I think, after the first of the year.
Okay. Should we table until January then?
I think that would be appropriate. We certainly aren't going to act on this in November and December.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to table.
I'll motion to table till
Council
January.
I'll second that. Dick LeBay.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call.
Chairman Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Budnick,
Yes.
Member Nab,
Yes.
Member Scanlon,
Yes.
Member Levesque,
Yes.
Member Gould. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. You are muted.
All is muted.
Yes.
There we
Okay, thank you.
Okay, new business. We have a resolution for permissions and easements for Resh. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, did you want me to provide some background to this?
Yes, please.
Per the development plans that have been submitted and approved by the planning board, the utility support for this project will be going across the redevelopment agency's land. It will then go across a parcel owned by First Minden, which is a house, and it will connect to Cumberland Hill Road, or I think is that Minden Road or Cumberland Hill Road? I always get that messed up. I think it's Cumberland Hill Road.
Amended.
So that's what we needed the permit from DOT for, to connect into the utility systems in that state road. Also, the development plan showed a private driveway that will come off of Park East Drive that will then access the Resch property. The curvature of that road due to topography has it going in a part of the redevelopment agency land, and thus there's a need for an access easement. So we will need to approve the granting of these easements as codified in the plans, subject to the execution or the drafting of a formal easement agreement, which has been given to me already, but also conditioned upon review by either the city solicitor's office or by appropriate legal counsel. So I'm asking for the authorization as the executive director to sign those easement agreements, since they will be critical path and will be a condition upon bank closing. But again, with the idea that it will need legal review and approval.
Okay, do we have a motion to authorize the executive director to sign the easements and permissions?
One other caveat, I'm sorry to jump in on this, that I think it's important to point out as it relates to the access agreement. If in the future a public road is built off of Park East Drive and circling on to Minden Road, which was the original plan, then the easement agreement would be drafted as such that the access easement granted to Resch would then be relinquished because they would have a public road that they would have access to. So that will be written into the easement agreement.
Perfect.
Got it. Any other questions regarding this? Okay, like a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into the agreements?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, Teresa, roll call?
Okay. Chairman Brown?
Yes?
Yes. Vice Chairwoman Budnick?
Yes.
Member Nab?
Yes.
Member Scanlon?
Yes.
Member Levesque?
Yes.
Member Gould?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to abstain. I had to remove myself from that conversation, so I'll abstain.
Okay.
So noted.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a discussion of a food cooperative, a local business.
Yes, this is actually part of a much bigger conversation, which we hope to have with the redevelopment agency starting the new year. As you know, in the last meeting, we spoke about the engaging of a consultant to do a comp plan update and how it's going to be very important that the redevelopment agency be included in that process as a stakeholder. As you may know, the downtown Woonsocket is a redevelopment district. and therefore it is an eligible location for the redevelopment agency to get involved in. There are a lot of things that we're working on conceptually for Main Street that we're extremely excited about. And of these conversations are really being held internally in the planning department at this point. It's not become part of a public discussion because it would be premature. But one of those initiatives relates to a food cooperative. Although I'm not really supportive of certain terminology used by, regulators and special interest groups, but Woonsocket is designated as a food desert. What that effectively means is that the availability of healthy foods and the access of the population to them is not good. In fact, part of Woonsocket is recognized as probably one of the worst locations in the state as it relates to this. I know the mayor has been very interested in attracting a grocery store, which obviously that would be great. But we're looking internally about the idea of a food co-op. These are becoming very, very big across the country. There's several in Rhode Island right now, including Urban Green. My son lives in Portland, Oregon. They have food co-ops all over the place, and that's where most people shop. We think a food co-op would be a great strategy for Woonsocket, and especially for downtown Woonsocket. So what we're trying to do at this point in time is to secure some funding support to do a feasibility study, market study on that as a location in Woonsocket. We're working with several entities, the Health Equity Zone. We've had reach out to Urban Greens. We've talked to Farm Fresh. We've talked to a lot of different parties about getting that located in the downtown area, and maybe even making it coincide with the new educational center that's being proposed in downtown Woonsocket and the commercial block. If we're able to move this idea forward, I think that there's a very interesting role that the redevelopment agency can play in this initiative, as well as multiple other initiatives. So there's nothing definitive that we are suggesting at this point in time, but since it is a redevelopment district, obviously the redevelopment agency should be aware of what we're doing. We will keep you very much in the loop on this. Key at this point is to try to raise some outside money to do the market study on a food co-op for downtown, which should be purely based on local regional foods, healthy eating, and also food education. We are working with Thunder Mist on this as well, which is part of the Health Equity Zone, as well as Department of Health. So we'll keep you informed as we go forward.
Great.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Where in Rhode Island is there a food co-op?
In Providence.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Urban Greens.
Urban Greens. Okay. Like I said, it's not something that I'm familiar with, so I'll get myself familiar with it. All right. Thank you.
And I'm not familiar with it either because I don't do grocery shopping in Providence, other than I have gone to the farmers market at Hope East Village, which is one of the initiatives of Farm Fresh, as well as the farmers market at Thunder Mist in Woonsocket is organized by Farm Fresh. But no, I'm not aware of that either.
Hey Scott, this is Kevin Proft, the city planner. I live in Providence, and since we've been talking about this, I made my way to the other side of the city to go to Urban Greens. If you want me to just kind of describe it, I could do that.
Sure.
That would be great.
Yes.
So it's a relatively small store. I'd say a little bit smaller than a Trader Joe's, if you're familiar with those stores, which are already smaller than a typical grocery store. Maybe it's half that size. It was a full service kind of grocery store shopping location. So you could go there and basically pick up everything that you need the way that you would if you went to a Stop and Shop. Obviously, they have less maybe brand selection. So if you like to stare at the laundry detergent for 25 minutes while you're making your decision between brands, it's not the place for you. It had a small produce section, it had a meat section, had, typical aisles with pasta sauce, all of that kind of stuff, even some bakery items, things like that. If you're walking in there and you don't know that it's a food co-op, you just think it was a small grocery store. In terms of the products they sold, they did seem to, try to offer local and regional options, but I don't think that that food co-op is exclusively that way. So I think that as we learn more about food co-ops, we'll have to determine if that's something that, is really possible, or if it has to kind of be a mix and match between national brands and local and regional, if you want to do a kind of full service one-stop location. But that was something that surprised me, because I was kind of thinking the way that Scott was before I went in there, that a food co-op kind of meant that you're really drawing on all local products, but it didn't really seem to be the case, at least in the Providence one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about it. I just wanted to visit it to see what it was like. And like I said, it was a typical small grocery store, that offered a lot of products. I didn't find that the pricing was, more outrageous than other, grocery stores that you'd shop at or anything like that. So it was nice. And if I lived in, the neighborhood, there's no reason that I would have driven to the closest Stop and Shop or Price Right or Whole Foods on the other sides of the city, rather than just going there.
Yeah, if you go to the food co-ops in like Portland, Oregon, I only use that as a reference because I spend some time in Portland with my son and daughter-in-law. The food co-ops there are actually very high end. You've got a much more affluent population in the Providence area, or excuse me, in the Portland area.
Yep.
It does just look like a grocery store, but there is clearly less of options, but much more focus on quality eating, healthy eating, and when possible, local grown. If you want to go buy a Twinkie or a Hostess cupcake, you're not going to go. Now, that comes from a guy who was raised on Twinkies and Hostess cupcakes, so I find that a bit depressing. But you won't see those kinds of things typically in a co-op, but you will see, it does look just like a smaller grocery store. It's owned by the customers. It's a different kind of business model, but I think the focus of it in Woonsocket would be to provide an alternative to the Stop and Shops, but more importantly, provide a healthy food location that's more accessible by the Woonsocket population.
Great.
Kevin, I have another question. I did not hear you say where in Providence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's on the west side. So I don't know how familiar you are with Providence, but
A little bit.
You have downtown, and then when you cross over 95 from downtown, that's kind of considered the west side. And it's on Cranston Street, which is near Westminster Street. So Westminster Street has a few, popular restaurants right now, but it's right on the border of a neighborhood that is kind of up and coming and becoming, for Providence standards, a little bit gentrified. And then just south of that neighborhood, you really start to get into lower income sections of town. And that was one of their priorities, was to make sure that that they were dealing with the same kind of food desert issues for low income populations. And one of their priorities was locating in a place that they were going to alleviate that concern. So they kind of found, I think, a sweet spot between probably more affluent shoppers that would want to shop there as, a statement that they shop at this local food co-op instead of Stop and Shop, but also hit populations that are currently don't have the option to go to a grocery store as easily and get healthy food because they live in maybe poorer neighborhood and don't have easy bus access to a real grocery store. So they're shopping at a corner store where, the healthiest option is like a bag of Fritos.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
I think that would be important. I think that would be important for Woonsocket as well.
Got it. Member LeVake has a question.
Yeah, when you say it's owned by the customers, or who would
Vendors.
actually run it?
Well, there would obviously, you know, and I think those are the kinds of things that are going to have to be vetted out as part of the market operating strategy. But theoretically, we could actually reach out to someone like Farm Fresh and have Farm Fresh run it for us. Clearly, you're going to want to have somebody who has deep experience in that market, and Farm Fresh does. So those are the kinds of questions that we want to really kind of address, as well as, you know, the demographics of the area and whether we could actually support a co-op here. I also want to point out that when I put this as a potential project of the redevelopment agency, the question I think should be posed, well, what does that mean? You know, a lot of the properties in the Main Street area pose some serious economic constraints. So there may be opportunities for the redevelopment agency to become more actively involved with investors to make projects happen. For example, on this food co-op, depending on the market study, maybe the redevelopment agency would have to get involved to do a master lease on a portion of an existing building, do some fit out, and effectively lease it to the co-op in a partnership. Because I'm going to assume, at least during the startup periods of a co-op, there's going to be some cash flow issues that maybe the redevelopment agency can help address. That same kind of approach and collaboration could really play out in a whole host of projects and properties downtown, in the downtown redevelopment district. And that's what redevelopment agencies are really positioned to do. They are typically project-based, real estate-based entities. So that's, I think, really potentially exciting. It would require funding support, which would have to be addressed here, but that's the kind of role we could see the redevelopment agency playing if the redevelopment agency's board was supportive of that.
And Scott, can I just say something about the community ownership?
Sure.
Sure.
So I think that when you say that it's owned by the community, or however you want to put it, the way that or the most important things that I typically associate with that is that there's usually like a board, the way there would almost be with a nonprofit, where it's local people making decisions about how the operation is going to be run, rather than say like a corporate board for like a Stop and Shop or a franchise. So you've got kind of the local community members making decisions about the business. There's often like a membership program where you can buy in to the co-op at a membership price, and then you get discounts, but that membership may also include that you as an individual actually help at the co-op, you know, donate some of your time to you know, running the co-op, whether that's stocking shelves or, you know, whatever it may be. Maybe there's some kind of time allocation that members have to making sure that the co-op succeeds. So it's kind of, I'm sure it's different across all co-ops, and I'm certainly not an expert, but those are the kind of things that happen at a co-op that might not happen at a typical grocery store.
As a product of the 60s, I want to emphasize that we're not talking about a commune. These are real businesses. The difference is that these businesses are motivated by criteria that are not just financial. It's community based, and I want to emphasize that REI has membership. Although it's a corporation, it has customer members who get benefits from belonging, as well as, you know, participation in the profits of the company. So there's a whole bunch of things that we need to look at on this, which is why we need to do the feasibility study.
Got it. a cooperative, not a commune. Thank you very much.
Maybe we can
Any
find
further discussion?
maybe we can find a one-pager and share it with the board after the meeting to kind of describe and give some case studies of existing co-ops too, if that's something
Yes.
that people want.
Yeah, we'll put together sort of not a position paper, but sort of a narrative about this idea and distribute it so you can get a better idea about it.
Great. Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll give that a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Roll call.
Wait, who made the motion
Jean did.
and who seconded?
I'll second it, David.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so for the vote to adjourn, I have Chairman Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Budnick,
Yes.
Member Nab,
Yes.
Member Scanlon,
Yes.
Member Levesque,
Yes.
and Member Gould.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
too.
Good day.